Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tuesday Night Legacy, where we showcase Magic's most powerful formats. We have Eric once again doing commentary for this next Legacy round. Take it away, Eric.
Hey, what's up? I'm Eric. This is Tuesday Night Legacy, commenting on a live Legacy match played on May 10th. This is going to be round 1 of that day. On the left, in the Tomb Raider sleeves, we have Ben playing Punishing Maverick. It's a green-white mid-range deck, splashing red for Punishing Fire, looping it with Grove of the Burn Willows. The main goal of the deck is to get out some mana acceleration in the form of Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch, Green Sun Zenith for Dryad Arbor, stuff like that, and then they go into playing some 3-drop creatures of varying power levels, including Knight of the Reliquary and Endurance. It is a Green Sun Zenith deck, so there's some silver bullets here and there in the form of green creatures that you could tutor for, and some utility lands, not quite on the level of their opponent, however, because on the right side in the triple-sleeved tower, we have Michael playing his lands deck. This deck is a classic legacy deck that's focused on making extra land drops with spells like Exploration, trying to lock people out of the game by looping Wasteland with Life from the Loam, taxing creatures with Tabernacle, keeping them out of combat with Maze of Ith, searching up lands, and assembling the combo of Dark Depths plus Thespian Stage to instantly make a 20/20 flyer to close the game out. However, in this matchup, that's going to be a little risky, though, because on the other side of the field, Ben does have things like Prismatic Ending and Swords to Plowshares, so it could be a little difficult to assemble that. So, for the most part, we'll probably see the lands player going for Urza Saga Construct tokens to finish out the game. With all that being said, though, let's go ahead and start game 1 and see how it goes. Ben on the play, neither player mulligan. He's going to start out with a basic forest into a Green Suns for 0, grabbing that Dryad Arbor, as before mentioned, accelerating the mana a little bit, and then we'll pass the turn, going on over to Michael. Deciding how he wants to sequence the turn. Lands often make several plays on the first turn of the game. We see a duel into Mox Diamond, discarding a Grove of the Burn Willows, get a little mana acceleration going. Exploration, further accelerating. Urza Saga off of the extra land drop, and finally finishing it out with the Sphere of Resistance. This is usually a sideboard card in land, so Michael's trying out something new here. All Ben's going to do is play a Wasteland, pop that Urza Saga to avoid the threat, and then attack for 1 with the Dryad Arbor. Back on Michael's turn. He's going to go ahead and play a Bog, exiling the fetch and the Wasteland out of Ben's yard, passing it back. Ben's thinking about what to do here. He plays a land and spends the extra mana to cast a Thalia. Now, non-creature spells are going to cost an extra mana on top of the sphere, so in response, Michael's going to spend 2 mana on a crop rotation, sacking that Bojuka Bog, and going into his deck, probably grabbing another Saga here. We'll see. Yeah, definitely another Saga. If he let the Thalia resolve, he would have had to spend a total of 3 mana, and he didn't have access to that as the Bojuka Bog came into play tapped. Passing it back to Michael here. Saga immediately going to Chapter 2 because it came into play on Ben's turn. And he's got 2 mana up. He just passes back to Ben. Ben plays out a Wasteland. Most likely going to blow that Saga, but the question is when. He can't attack with the creatures either, because Construct Token will be a 3/3 at this point with 2 artifacts plus the Construct itself, and that would block either of the creatures. He does pass the turn. In Ben's end step, Michael makes a Construct Token, and then Ben decides to pop the Wasteland at that point. Michael's going to go ahead and play an Elvish Reclaimer, kind of a crop rotation on a stick. It is currently a 3/4 as there are several lands in the field. He'll pass it back to Ben. Ben just plays an extra land. Michael's going to go ahead and untap, draw for the turn. Think about what he wants to do. He could attack with the construct currently, as the creatures are too small to challenge it. He does exactly that, swings for 3, but Michael's got an endurance in his hand. He's able to pay for it through the Sphere of Resistance already. He flashes it in and profitably blocks that construct token, putting Michael's graveyard back onto the bottom of his library, which is going to turn off Elvish Reclaimer's bonus health. Michael just casually laying out a Tabernacle of Pendril Veil, which is going to tax creatures here. 1 mana on the upkeep, otherwise they're destroyed. Ben will pay for all of his creatures and just swing for 5. Michael thinking about chump blocking, but decides against it with that Elvish Reclaimer. He decides he wants to stick around with it and be able to tutor out some lands in the future. But things aren't looking good. He's only got a couple of cards in his hand. He's only able to make 2 mana a turn due to the lack of lands. Ben's just going to continue to develop his mana and swing in for 5 every turn. Michael passes it back again. Ben paying for his creatures every turn, swinging for 5. Michael plays out. I want to say that's not a Yavimaya, that's a Beseju. Without channeling it, he just plays it as a mana source because he's quite low on mana currently. Passes it back. Ben lets his Dryad Arbor die, pays for the 2 attacking creatures, and Michael's forced to chump block finally, blocking the Endurance. He activates the Reclaimer to sacrifice a land and go tutor 1 up. Yeah, it looks like he's going to sacrifice the Beseju, and I imagine it's going to be yet another Urza Saga. Even if he was running low, the Endurance did shuffle, I think 2 back into his deck. So there's plenty of them to grab off of that Reclaimer activation. Still on Ben's turn here. He's thinking about spending some mana on something, but then he decides against it and passes it back. Saga again going to chapter 2. Michael's got access to 3 mana, which means at best he could cast a 1 mana non-creature spell between the Sphere and the Thalia, but it looks like he's just going to pass it back, holding up that construct activation. Ben playing out yet more lands, significantly ahead of the lands deck, and yeah, there's nothing to be done. He could only block 1 creature. He'll be taking 2 minimum unless there was something else that he could have done, but he didn't have anything. So we'll go ahead and move into game 2 with Michael on the play. Both players here on 7 cards. Michael on the play will get into it. Michael goes ahead and lays out a Wasteland into an Expedition map, which is going to let him tutor for a land. Ben goes ahead and plays a Noble Hierarch, accelerating his mana a little bit, getting closer to those sweet, sweet 3-drop creatures that this deck loves so much. Passes back. Michael plays a Yavimaya, allowing all of his lands to tap for mana, including this Dark Depths that he just played off of the Exploration. Normally doesn't tap for mana, but with the Yavimaya in play, it could tap for green, which is the primary color that lands is interested in generating. He's passing the turn here, holding up 2 mana for Expedition map activation. Ben's turn. He's going to go ahead and lay out Wasteland, one of those cards that you love to see in your hand as a lands player, but hate to see on the other side. And Collector Oof, the collector of oofs, will come down, forcing Michael to sack that Expedition map lest it be useless going forward with this Null Rod on a stick on the battlefield. Looks like he's looking for something here. Yeah, he's just going to grab a basic forest. He's worried about recurring wastelands. He doesn't feel comfortable going for the Dark Depths combo with the Wasteland in play on Ben's side, so he just grabs some reliable mana, and then it goes to his turn. Plays that basic forest, and Grove of the Burn Willows will potentially see some Punishing Fire looping happening. So far it's just a Shadow Spear, and then casting a Life from the Loam with no targets does say up to 3. So you could choose 0 and then just get the dredge engine going. It's a way for lands to churn through their deck and generate some card advantage. On Ben's turn, he's going to go ahead and grab another land here, making his 3rd land drop, access to 4 mana total with that Noble Hierarch out. He decides on a duel. And he's spending 3 to cast a Knight of the Reliquary, kind of the feature card of this deck. It grows in relation to how many lands are in the graveyard, and it can sack a forest or a plains to crop rotate, basically. Gets in for 2 with the Collector Oof and passes the turn back. Michael goes ahead and dredges for 3 with that Life from the Loam, adding it back to his hand and then casting it immediately to get the lands back. He wastelands Ben's wasteland, and Ben responds by wastelanding the Dark Depths. A lot of wasting going on, if you know what I mean. Ooh, brutal. Ben goes in with a prismatic ending, exiling that exploration, removing any mana advantage that Michael might have been able to generate with this Life from the Loam looping, and just gets in for 4 damage off of his creatures. We're going to play a Birds of Paradise and then pass the turn. Continuing to dredge Loam. Continuing to cast Loam. Just grabbing back 3 lands here, including a wasteland. And we'll probably see, I imagine, the Urza Saga come out. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Urza Saga kind of Michael's only recourse for winning this particular matchup. He's going to go for it as often as he can. No lands in the graveyard, just continuing to swing for 4 total power. And, ooh, brutal. That is a Knight of Autumn, which I believe is a sideboard card in this deck. Green Sun's target, but he just naturally drew and cast it this time around. The particular line being relevant here of destroy target artifact or enchantment, blowing up that Saga and keeping the board clear. More Loam dredging happening. I see a Krakus in the graveyard there, which is not quite relevant on this board at the moment. No legendary creatures in play. I believe the only legendary creature in Ben's deck is going to be that Thalia, although hilariously Questing Beast is legendary. Everybody always forgets that. Speaking of Questing Beast, that was indeed how the game ended, with Michael being at 9 life. Green Suns for X equals 4, grabbing that Questing Beast, giving him just enough power to swing for 10 damage and end the game on the spot. And there it is. Michael not being able to pull anything together. Ben just assaulting over and over again with Wasteland. Game 1, Michael's own sphere of resistance working against him, and Game 2 just not finding anything relevant off of the Life from the Loam dredges. Not being able to stay ahead of curve with exploration or anything like that. But yeah, that was round 1, and I hope I'll see you next time. Thanks again, Spellhold, for hosting us, and have a good one.